Okay, we will start. So I'll go ahead and turn on the video. I'm Mrs. Woodland, and I'm teaching Design 113 this mod. And so I just want to welcome you to class, kind of give you a virtual handshake to those who are watching either from home via the recording or whether you're joining me in class. It's so good to have you, Terry. I'm going to go ahead and close out the video, and that way we can jump into the meat and potatoes of our lesson. So I have a lot planned today. The main things that I want to cover are the assignments, because I know that that's going to be coming up this week. And so have you had a chance to look at it? Hopefully you guys have had a chance to look at assignment 1. Great, that's wonderful, good news. So I'll briefly touch on the requirements. We'll do a few housekeeping things and go over some kind of facts that you need to know about this class, and then we'll jump in right into lecture. And then I've got a whole slew of hands-on design tutorials that I want to show you to apply to your assignment 1. So we'll be working heavily with that. So assignment 1, it's creating a letter mark, and we'll get into what a letter mark is in just a minute. We'll talk about logos, we'll talk about symbols and the difference between a letter mark and other ones that you might have seen, and we'll also touch on some examples that we've seen and what to do and what not to do. And I'll show you a little bit of tips and tricks that you can use to jumpstart your assignment 1. So go on to the course homepage and you will see that there are grading rubrics posted for this week's assignments. So make sure that you check those and see what exactly you're going to be graded on, how many points that's worth, and that way there's no surprises, and hopefully everybody gets full credit on this. We will also be doing some demos for you so you know exactly what to expect. This won't be a surprise. I'll kind of walk you through most of it. Though the tutorials or demos that I do for this logo design, you will have to come up with your own creative ideas, okay? So that's the only thing. So this is Design 113. We're going to be talking about typography. And before I jump into our lecture, I just wanted to make a few announcements. So obviously we're having our lecture today. Wednesday will be our multi-session night. So same time, 7:30 to 9:30 Mountain Standard Time will be our multi-session night. Now, if you can't make my multi-session just due to scheduling conflicts, or maybe it's a later time for your time zone, I totally get it and I understand. So I will be posting a different schedule for other instructors that hold different multi-sessions at different times, at different days of the week. So if you can't make mine, try your best to at least go visit one of those classes. And as soon as I get the schedule, I'll post it on the announcements. Which brings me to my next point, is that the announcements, if you keep up with them, that'll be my way of communicating with you. I won't be able to email everybody directly. So that's kind of the way that I'll be updating just news, info, what's new. It's all going to be on the announcements. And I'll also post a link to the recording through the announcements, though you can also find it on the course homepage under, I believe it's live sessions, the tab live sessions. It has a person with a microphone in front of a screen. So that is where you'll go to find the recordings. And are there any questions before we start? Welcome. Is it Vianne? Did I say that right?
It's Vianne, like Diane, but with a V.
Vianne. Oh, that's beautiful. I like that name. That's very unique. And then is it Lena?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I said it right. So if I mispronounce your name, please forgive me. I will get it by the end of the mod. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming. It's so great to have you. So are there any questions before we dive in? I know that you guys are going to be expected to know what's on the syllabus, so we're not going to cover that. Let's see, we've got a discussion coming up, and to get full credit, you have to post by Wednesday, just the first initial post. And that also needs to be a minimum of 150 words. This is a visual course, graphic design, so share some visual examples if it's applicable, if it pertains to what you're talking about. Love that. You'll just need to cite those sources. No questions? Okay, and as they come up, feel free to just write in the chat box or raise your hand or interrupt me at any time, okay? And just a little introduction about the way I like to structure my classes. I do like to do lecture, kind of give you a foundation of where I'm coming from. And then I do a lot of hands-on demos in Illustrator, and we'll be working with Illustrator and InDesign today. So what I'll do is I usually do a demo, and then I'll turn it over to you to kind of practice it or try it. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Sometimes we have time to do that, sometimes we don't. but I like to reserve time for you to try it on your own, and then I'll have you share your screen if you want. I won't put anyone on the spot, but if you're willing to show your work, it helps everyone involved so we can all see, and I can help you if you're struggling or whatever. I can help. If you share your screen, it can help you step you through it. So it's kind of a nice one-on-one, and most students, I get good feedback from it. So students usually like that structure. But again, I won't call on you if you don't want to share, but I guess we all learn better when we are able to kind of work together as a class. So without much more, I'll just continue. So let's talk about typography. You're taking a typography class. What is typography? What do you think it is? If you had to just put it in some simple words, what would you say it is? Working with font. That's a great definition. Anyone else? Yeah, so working with font, I'll go with Vianne's definition there. From a descriptive and a simplistic point of view, typography is the art and the technique of arranging type. So yeah, exactly like Terry said, design with words. Typography plays a huge role in the graphic design industry, so much so that it's almost its own little niche in the graphic design industry. If you pursue this, how many of you guys are doing this to be graphic designers as a career versus a hobby? Are you guys pursuing this? Okay, so we've got 1, 2. Okay, some on the fence. That's fine, and that's okay. I have a lot of friends who just took a few graphic design classes just to kind of feel it out. They felt that they were pretty artsy, and they wanted to kind of see what that offered them. Wound up, some pursued it for a career because they loved it and took off, but some others just kind of used it as a hobby, and that was fine too. So I use it for both. But yeah, so graphic design, so if you go into the industry and this becomes a career, you can almost even kind of shoehorn yourself into a typographic artist. And so there are many of those. Many people never think about typography really because we use words all the time, but they don't understand that there's a psychological effect that it has in relation to conveying a message. So words are very important, the way that the words are portrayed. Have you ever texted someone or received a text from someone that was in all caps? And what does that usually signify? I get an anger, yelling, right? That's usually what it sounds. It kind of comes off that way, right? Whether the person on the other end meant it or not. Usually, if you portrayed your words in all caps, that kind of sends a message. So that's what we're talking about. There's an effect with how words are used or even portrayed. So yeah, my brother does that. That's why. Stop yelling. Exactly. So it is kind of irritating, but again, there's an effect that comes from it versus lowercase and uppercase. So it's kind of interesting. So even just with something simple like that, typography is a language. It's the words, it's the font, it's how it's used, and so how it's designed. So if you have ever seen the movie The Holiday, have you guys ever seen the movie The Holiday? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So then you know that Cameron Diaz's character, Amanda Woods, she's a movie trailer maker, right? And in one scene, she asked her coworkers to make the type for the movie header she's working on. And I believe it was twice as big, but try it in a red, like a happy red, not a sorceress red. And that phrase that she used, that's all part of the art that is typography. So she wants to use a shade or a color, but she wants to make it happy, put a happy twist on it and not a shade that would give a different meaning on what she's trying to capture. So typography is 95% of design. It's a driving force in all forms of communication art. So can you imagine reading a magazine or checking out a website, playing with an app, or watching TV without text? Could you imagine that? A world without words or fonts? It'd be pretty boring, wouldn't you think? So that is what typography is. And so we're going to be talking about why is typography important? And we kind of touched a little bit on that. There's no other design discipline that requires so much learning and training as fontography, which is another way we refer to typography. But And by no other aspect can amateurs be so easily distinguished from professionals. So again, the type of fonts that you choose in this class are going to set you aside from novices to beginners. And so we want to make sure that we're using correct fonts. Now we'll go over the do's and don'ts of typography in this class and what will be expected, but for the most part, we need to kind of develop an eye for it. And so if you'll notice the type of font that I'm using here, can anyone tell me what stands out to you? Can you describe this font at all? You don't have to know what it is, but can you just tell me a little bit about what it looks like to you in terms of design? Okay, so we have a sans serif. Terry said it's sans serif, excellent. What does it communicate to you or look like to you, or just anything that you notice about it? And there's no wrong answer. Yeah, it's pretty standard, so it's probably a font that we've seen on many other things. So another thing that I notice is it's very clean. Do you find it easy to read? Yeah, it's pretty easy to read. It's not a scriptive, fancy, cursive font. It's pretty clean, straightforward, right? So that was kind of the message I wanted when I was choosing my font for my headline. Is I wanted to be straightforward, easy to read, and I wanted it to look clean. And I tend to go towards the sans serif fonts, anyways. But there's a time and a place for both of them. But overall, that was the message I was trying to convey with my headline. Okay, so we know typography is important because it conveys a feeling. We just talked about the all caps when we're texting. The choice of typeface can affect how a piece is understood. So I'm going to show you two examples. I'm going to pull it in here. See if it'll let me. May have to drag it onto my desktop and then pull it in. Give me 1 second, sorry. Usually I can just drag it in, but it's being ridiculous today. Okay, so look at this example for just a minute. Tell me what you see. What's the difference from the example on the left and the example on the right? Which is more appropriate considering the title of the article? So look at the title of the article, what the text is saying, and then tell me which font you would think would be more appropriate. Is it the left one or the right one? So we're talking about private equity, so that sounds important, right? And so the one on the right kind of looks like it's geared more for a child, maybe like a daycare or something. I don't know if I'd trust a company if they use that silly font. It would almost kind of discredit them. So yeah, Terry says the left one would probably be the more appropriate choice for this kind of a company that uses this headline. So any company or a headline that's talking about private equity, it's more of a serious topic, more something you want to make sure is conveys security. And so this would probably be more of an appropriate font to use rather than the silly, fun, playful font that you see on the right. So most people would automatically choose the example on the left. The font size and the type elicits a feeling of power, its seriousness, and importance. So those are words that come to my mind. So while the example on the right is fun, light, and playful, it's probably not the appropriate font to use. So we'll just use that as an example. Typography keeps people reading. Good typography is utilitarian in that it should allow the reader to focus on the content and not on the formatting. So good typography often goes unnoticed because it just makes sense. It just looks clean. So if you were looking at my slide right now, nothing too terrible would stick out to you. Hopefully not. Hopefully there's no gross spelling errors. But overall, typography-wise speaking, it's pretty clean. There's no, weird spacing. Everything's pretty much uniform, right? And so good typography, like I said, it goes unnoticed because we just kind of expect it or we see it. So I want you to consider these two examples. I'll pull another set of examples up and see what you think. Okay, here's two of them. So looking at these examples, in terms of keeping people reading, the example on the left, I want you to tell me what the difference is between the left and the right. Which one would you say is easier to read? Okay, and then why do you say the left? Why? Okay, so Lena says the spacing plays an important part. Yeah, because if you'll notice on the left, the sentence, or I guess there's a lot of, we call it tracking. So there's a lot of space between the lines of text that gives some breathing room and helps you better readability. Okay, so Terry says the colors are busy on the right side. Yeah, there's too many colors going on, too many fonts going on, really. I think there's 4 fonts being used here. And yes, Vianne, it says that sometimes colors indicate the important information. That is true. That's why we want to use colors sparingly. So if maybe maybe the insert subtitle here on the left was red, that might catch my attention. So there's nothing wrong with using color, but too many colors will distract from the message. So it almost does the opposite of what we're thinking it does. We don't want the rainbow on our page. We want to use colors sparingly, okay? So usually a good rule of thumb when it comes to colors in logo design, like the assignment we have coming up, or whether it's layout and graphic design, you want to kind of stick to the 2 to 3 color rule. I would just stick to 2 to 3 colors until you can get a good grasp on what's appropriate and what's not. And 2 colors, meaning black and white, could be 2 colors. You can also throw a 3rd color in there. So I would just pick 3 colors that are pretty compatible with each other on the color wheel, and then work from there. But 4 colors is crazy, and even pink, blue, red, green. I mean, it's all over the map. We want to pick complementary colors that work together and not against each other. So you'll find in fact, there's a whole class dedicated to just color theory. So I don't know if you've taken that class yet, but it's pretty crazy. And once you get the handle on typography, you're going to have to learn the science and the psychological effects that color has. So it's a lot to take in, but just that general rule of thumb, kind of same rule with fonts, how many fonts you're using. I say 2 max. If you're feeling like you got the hang of it, maybe add a 3rd, but no more than 3. So it's kind of the rule of thirds, like no more than 3 colors, no more than 3 fonts. So try to stick to the 2 or 3 rule. Okay, so like we saw, the example on the left was clear, it was simple, easy to read, but the right example had far too many colors, too many font styles, and it was all on a background that's very disconcerting to the eye. The colors just didn't jive together. All right. So I want to talk about, let's see. Oops. All right, one more thing. So we'll talk about the elements of good typography. We want things to be consistent. So in any typographical work, the consistent use of typefaces, kerning, leading is the space between your letters, and kerning is the space between your lines. Bullets, formatting, these are all critical. How many of you like to be organized? Or kind of have that OCD, I need things to be in order? Yeah, I'm very much like that. So this just makes sense to me. Lena says, I try and fail. I do love organization. Whether or not I have the time for it, that's another story. But I do love visual communication because it makes sense. Things should be organized. Things need to be clean. You need to be able to find what you're looking for in a layout very easily. And so this all really speaks to me. So consistency makes the work look professional. It keeps your readers focused on the content and not the formatting, for one. And then we're going to talk about hierarchy. Does anyone know what hierarchy is? Have you heard that word before? It's kind of a big word, not used to. Okay, order, exactly, Vianne. So you kind of nailed it on the head, order. It's important that your text gets read in the order that it's meant to be read in. What does that mean? Well, we'll go into more of that in week 2 and 3, but take a book for consideration. Are you reading a book right now? Maybe class materials. Okay, so whether it's for school or pleasure, the title is the first thing that a reader sees, right? And then it's the author's name followed by the chapters and then the story. But each one is smaller and it gets smaller and smaller. So hierarchy intentionally guides the reader through the content. It says, hey, your eyes go here first, then it goes here second, and then the very last information is going to be super, super small. So often with the best-selling authors, their name will appear larger or the same size as the title of the book, right? But this is because the designer is aware that the author has an existing fan base and that will be interested in the book regardless of the title, and will most likely pick it up for that very reason. But this is a good example of hierarchy. So hierarchy, you start large, you work your way down. The less important the information, the smaller it becomes. So you kind of organize your visual communication in hierarchical order. Are there any questions about this? Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so we also talked about alignment. Now, what do you think alignment means in terms of typography or graphic layouts? You might have seen this if you work, if you've worked in Word, you can adjust your alignment of your text. So it's exactly like Lena said, how things line up. So alignment helps keep the look of a piece unified. A flush left or a flush right alignment gives the piece a stronger edge line for the viewer's eyes to follow. It makes it easier to read. If words were staggered all over the page, it would be just chaos. So alignment also tends to give a more sophisticated look than a centered alignment. I had one student a few mods back who just couldn't wrap their mind around any other alignment other than centering their design on a page. And so it took a while to kind of break that mold, but often beginner designers will try to center everything on a page because to them it looks like everything's in order, which is often the choice of, typography novices. But it's important to use the left alignment or the right alignment to create balance on your page. And we'll have time to practice that as we move on. But just if you hear me use these terms, consistency, hierarchy, alignment, especially in your grading, when I give my feedback, I'll use these terms and this is what I'm referring to, okay? Okay, so that's a great idea, Lena. Or great question. So she's asking, she read that the word flush in the discussion, but what exactly does that mean? So I will show you, we'll actually, let me see if I can pull up my Illustrator and I can show you. Let's see, maybe InDesign would probably be a better place to do it. Let me share my screen and I'll answer your question with a visual example. Because I'm a visual person, so I like to see answers in picture form. Okay, give me 1 second. I've got a million windows open, so I'm going to just kind of close out of this. And I'll pull this up. Okay, so I'll demonstrate it in my InDesign. And as you do your reading and watch the videos, this will probably be answered too. So I'm just going to draw a text box and add some text for you. All right, so we've got all that text. So if I were to highlight this text, and I'll zoom in so you can get a good look at it. Right now, the way that this is positioned is this is a right alignment, and then this is, a left alignment. This is a right alignment. But if we were to justify things flush, that means the left, it all lines up on the same line, and then the right even lines up on the same line. So that's flush. So it can mean two different things. Which side do you want it to lie flush on? So the left side, all these words kind of start and stop in the same point, the same vertical line, right? Whereas on the left or the right side, they're a little staggered. So when we say flush left, flush right, we mean on the left, we want all the words to line up on the same vertical line. Does that make sense? So I'll show you in pencil form. Let me see if I can get a color up. It's a really good question. So all these words right there line up flush. I'll do it this way. Right like that. Does that help clarify things a little bit more? Yeah, it's a little confusing. So if something says flush left, that means it's all going to be on the same, that means you'll just use your left alignment. If you want flush right, you use your right alignment, okay? See how it changed? Now this side is all staggered. On the left side, it's all staggered. I used my right alignment now. So now the words kind of line up on the right-hand side. So yeah, so the way that I understand it is justify is the flush. So justify just means you're justifying it to the left, you're aligning it to the left, and that means everything's going to lie flush against the left side. If you justify it to the right or do a right alignment, everything's going to lie flush on the right side. So pretty much that's how I understand it. Does that make sense? All right, great question. That's a great question. All right, so let's jump back, see where we are on time. Okay, just a few more minutes on this lecture. We might not have time to go through everything. I'm gonna kind of speed ahead and see. Let's talk about what not to do here in our design, especially with our logo design. Now in logo design, it's a little different than layout design, but logo design, you definitely wanna make sure you stick to one font. One or two fonts for your logo design. I wouldn't go beyond that. Any more than that just becomes a little distracting and will kind of do the opposite of what you're hoping it will. It will really take away from your design. So don't use multiple fonts if you can, avoid it. I'd say pick one. Now, within one font family, there's a lot of different styles you can use. So if you were to use regular and bold and you're using Futura, you can use a regular and a bold to create contrast, and you're still using the same font. Does that make sense? So it's important that you can use the font family and then use the styles within it to create the contrast you're looking for, rather than using two separate fonts. Sometimes it can work to your advantage using a sans serif with a serif font, but you have to do it tastefully and carefully. But 3 fonts is kind of out of the question. You don't need more than 2 fonts in a logo design. And then I posted an example here at the bottom. This is how things look when you use too many fonts, and then this is how things look when you keep it simple. So the left versus the right is a lot simpler. It's a little easier to read. It's not as crazy. Now, it is important to create emphasis, and that is important in our layout and design, but when we're doing the logo for our assignment 1, we're definitely going to want to make sure we keep things simple. Here's another don't stretch fonts. That's the top example here. This is a nice font. Don't spoil it by stretching letters. So some students find it hard to constrain the proportions when they're resizing something, or they maybe might slip when they're trying to resize an object, and it stretches the object instead of constraining the proportions and resizing it proportionally. So sometimes stretching can occur, and we don't want that. That looks bad. It doesn't look very good, and it doesn't look very professional. So we want to make sure we avoid the stretching and anything that looks misproportioned. Now the bottom example here, typographic style is good for signage. This top one here is a very clean font. It's great if you were to do a headline, or even if you were to put it on a billboard, because this would be easy to read. But if you were to step back from your computer, maybe 10 good steps, it'd be really hard to read this scriptive font here. It says typographic style is bad for signage. And then on the bottom one, the all caps with the fancy lettering, never do this ever. So don't do the all caps fancy font. It just is very hard to read. So remember, we want to keep it simple, and sometimes a good lowercase font with a traditional font is probably the best way to go. And when we talk about graphic design, or sometimes when I set students loose, they feel like they need to make things scriptive to make it look professional, and that's not the case. So have fun using the sans serif and the serif fonts. Those are, especially from the approved list, those are going to be classic, and they'll be perfect for your designs. All right, so there's anatomy and terminology. The only thing that you're going to really need to know for this class, and that's if I'm referring to it in tutorials or demos, is the X height of your letters. So kind of know the X height is the is found right here. And then the baseline, I'll often say, make sure that everything lines up with the baseline of your font. And I'll show you an example, but we'll get into that in week 2 because this will become more important. But kind of understand what the X height is. The baseline is the bottom where all of your letters kind of end at the same point. The descender line is where your descenders from your letters, like your Y's and your P's, anything that extends beyond the baseline, that's kind of where it ends. And so that's the descender line. And that's, other than that, that's all you'll probably need to know for this class. Okay, so there is a whole slew of information about the anatomy, the size. I don't believe we have time for that, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so we understand the difference between sans serif and serif. There's design applications for different categories. You can also download really cool fonts from DaFont, but in this particular logo design assignment, we have to stick with the approved list of fonts that are given, and that is all found under assignment 1. So make sure you download that. Depending on whether you're working with a PC or a Mac, you'll download the corresponding folder. Okay, so serif is usually used for print. You usually find serif fonts. If you go back to your book or your magazine that you're reading, you'll find that serif font is perfect for print. You'll see that the body of your book or magazine usually uses, I would say 99% of those publications will use a serif font for fine print or for small print, the body of the content. Sans serif is excellent for web, so you'll often see sans serif like I'm using when you're looking at something online. But you also want to consider formal versus traditional, what's modern, what's a more graphic feel. Sans serif is tends to be more of the modern, contemporary styles that are used in graphic design. But each can be used wherever, and if you choose it wisely, it's going to look tasteful. It's going to look great. So either one, just kind of understand the difference between serif and sans serif. Everyone understands that difference? Is that right? Is there anyone that doesn't know? Okay, pretty straightforward. There's little serifs at the end. All right, got it. Okay, so bad fonts. Here are some fonts that a lot of students will tend to gravitate to for logo design. If we say, oh, okay, we're designing, like for example, we're just supposed to design a logo for Jumping Spider Toys. It's a toy company geared towards, I'd assume, kids, but it could be, who knows. But it is a toy company. So automatically some students kind of go to this Comic Sans font, and they're not supposed to, because it looks playful and it looks fun, but it's often misused, and now I would say it's overused. But Papyrus is another font that is often overused. And then Bleeding Cowboys, that's just another font that's often used too much. I called it abuse. It's because people they use it, but they use it incorrectly. And so they just kind of avoid these fonts. There's other ones I want to add to the list, but if you stick to your approved font list, you should be okay. All right. We're going to kind of speed through this. This will be a fun assignment, Futura versus Baskerville. This is a sans serif font versus a serif font, and in your final project, or I think it's week 3 that you'll do this, you'll do a typography portrait just like this, and it'll be really fun to see what font you choose to do your, what you come up with. All right, so let's talk about our assignment 1, okay? Let's jump into this. I'm kind of done talking. I think it'd be more fun if we did design work. So let's talk about logos and letter marks. I have a video here that I wanted to share. And we'll see if I can pull it up. Okay, let me know if you can.
Here we're going to talk about letter forms and logos and the things that you can consider when you're working with letter forms to create an expressive letter mark or type logo. Now, what you see here is a partial screen of the result of a Google search I did for logos. And this page came up filled with logos, many of which
Okay,
I'm
hold on
sure
one
you
second.
recognize.
I'm going to, I know you don't see anything, I'm sorry. Hold on, there's so many steps. Okay, perfect, now we got it.
Now, in this course, we're
You see
going
it?
to work exclusively with types. So the imagery here is not something we're
Awesome.
going to consider. But there are a couple of logos here that I feel use type to a very expressive extent, and they're highlighted here. The Oreo logo is one that I think works very well because the fat white letter forms really give us a feeling of the cream that's inside the chocolate cookie. If the letter forms here had been thin or delicate or even colored, it wouldn't work nearly as well. I know you all agree that we get a sense of the rich, opulent cream that's inside the cookies here, and the letter forms help to recognize that. Notice too that the letter forms, while being very fat and sumptuous looking, are still slightly separated so that you can easily read the word. And this is always something to consider when you're working with letter forms. If you can't read it, it's not going to be successful. So over here, we have a logo you may be familiar with, the Guitar Hero video game logo. This is very well done because, again, you can easily read the phrase, even though the letters have been distorted and manipulated such that they fit closely together, like a tight band would, so to speak. And the G and the R, you'll notice, have been stylized, and the points have been manipulated on some of the other letters. The whole effect is one of kind of a Gothic Old English feel, such as many metal bands use in their music. So we get a sense of that hard rock feeling from this really well done logo, all done with letter forms. Over here, we see a very simple one, the Hershey's logo. Now, of course, the dark brown rectangle behind the letter forms signifies the delicious chocolate bar that's inside the package. You'll notice too that the letter forms are not treated that extensively. It's a very simple treatment, but the letters are all caps. They're in a bold sans serif typeface, very tightly spaced, very tidy, again, very easy to read. But the way that this works, I think, is the fact that the letters are all capitals. That implies confidence, boldness, and it also makes for a nice rectangular shape to the words, which fits nicely on a package. So an all caps treatment can communicate that power, that boldness and confidence. It can also be really easy to work with in layout because it comes out in a nice rectangular aspect. The last logo we're going to look at here is the eBay logo, and it's a good example of what we call mixed case. You'll notice that the Y used in the logo is a capital letter, but the other three letters are lowercase. And you'll notice too that they overlap, but yet you can still easily read the logo. It's multicolored, which to me signifies diversity and abundance. And it's a friendly, not too formal looking logo that has been very successful in communicating the nature of the company. So these are some of the ideas that you can get from working with type and type logos. Now, for one of your assignments is to work with a toy store logo, Jumping Spider Toys. And here,
okay, so we'll stop there just because we'll get into our own demo. We're going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to introduce that real quick. So let's stop the share. We'll go back here real quick and we'll talk about our letter marks. So I often use letter marks as a term, and it is a term. How is it different from other logos that you've seen? Do you know what a letter mark is? And if not, that's okay. That's why we're here. I just want to kind of get a feel for if anybody is familiar with what a letter mark is. Because there's three main types of logo design. So it's important to be able to distinguish which one is which. So yeah, you only use the letters, right? Exactly. And Lena says only the initials. So that's exactly right. Let's look at some right here. And let's talk about the right side. So when it comes to a letter mark logo uses text to create a unique typographic mark. So for example, a company might use its initials, just like Lena said, and a unique design as its logo. Those letters become the brand icon. So CNN is an excellent example. Lettermark logos are very popular in rebranding campaigns for companies with names that have been either shortened to acronyms over the years or maybe not as well known. And the Associated Press logo is a good example of that. If you're thinking of creating a logo as a letter mark, make sure the initials in the logo are a better representation of your company, or you can brand the full name if you were able to do it like Jeep and Nike. But for the most part, it's kind of like H&M. It's just the initials. CNN, they stand for something. As you can see here, wordmark is Jeep, Ferrari. Those use the entire word, the name of the company. But whereas a letter mark uses the initials or the abbreviation. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. So you might need to invest, well, most companies do invest additional time and money into educating clients about what the company does, or I'm sorry, consumers about what their company does or what their brand offers. So lettermark design is really important because it might not be as clear as your complete company or brand name is. And so you want to make sure that the initials look good together, that it can't be misread or misinterpreted, and that there is a message to send when you design. So let's see if there'd be an example. Okay, so font choices, these aren't letter marks per se, but these are, I guess IBM is, HSQ is, and ESPN. Some of these are letter marks, but these are font choices. So you can see there's all different kinds of fonts out there that you can choose. So consider these letter relationships. Look how they're positioned with one another. Some roll into each other, just like this, T and F. Some are attached, some are disconnected, some look like they kind of been sliced, welded, kind of flow into each other. It's pretty cool. And I also want to point out too that letter marks are exclusively typographic. So there's no, I would say, no other graphics on the page. They use a symbol representing the company through the use of its initials or the brand's first letter. So they do use a symbol, but it usually ties in with the letters. So many companies choose to use this type of logo because their initials can be better graphically illustrated. Maybe it can better illustrate the company than the full name can. Maybe the name is way too long. So the name is hard to, that's another thing. If the name is hard to pronounce, they usually just do the initials. Or if it's just not distinct enough to carry its own weight, sometimes they use the initials. So some companies and organizations that use letter marks include Hewlett-Packard, and I don't know if I have that example up here. Let me show you. So here's Hewlett-Packard, Chanel, that's one that's probably be common with the women, and then General Electric. So this is another example of letter marks where they use just the abbreviated letters, and they don't really use, I would say, other graphics unless they tie in exactly with the company. So when you're coming up with your logo design, you really want to make sure that you pick the right font. So in this case, test several different options. Write out the company name and then try different kinds of fonts on your font list, on the approved font list that you've been given. Try them all out and type them all out and see which one looks better to you, which one conveys the message. Because like we said, you wouldn't choose a fun, silly font for a law firm. You'd probably pick a more serious, more important font for that kind of a no-fuss font for a law firm. But if you were doing something for a daycare or maybe something geared towards children, you want more of a playful font, something that's a little bit more lighthearted and silly. So you just need to consider your audience and consider the company that you're designing for. And then pick one that looks the best. So study the different personalities, use the approved fonts on the list. And then for additional effect, kind of experiment with positive and negative space. If you look at this Boss Hunting logo, the first one, I just think it's brilliant how they used the letter H, and with a little bit of manipulation, they were able to create that white B with the negative space in between. So it's kind of cool. They used the B and the H. So that's pretty simple yet very effective style that you could use. So this J and C, I think, is a brilliant idea too. Using that negative space, kind of creating something within that logo. Looks really good. And look at this one with the pencil at the bottom. This isn't a letter mark, but look at what they did. You see the pencil? The white pencil? I think it's kind of cool how they did that with the I and the L. They used that negative space between the letters. And then one that's most common that you might see a few times pop up in your course if you take more graphic design courses is the FedEx logo. Look at the space between the E and the X. What do you see? What shape do you see? The arrow, right? So it's more than just the letters. They've created a message. It's moving forward. Their company is constantly moving forward. There's other descriptive adjectives you could use about the company, but the arrow is very big and important. It was done on purpose. So that's pretty cool. City Direct is a really neat one, how they created that, use that negative space, and then Green Tree, where it's obviously a green, well, green and tree is in the name, and they created that leaf through the negative space by using the G. So I thought that was brilliant. Very, very creative, but very simple, right? We're not using flashy colors on on many of these. And then how many fonts do you see? Usually one font is being used throughout all of them, or and mostly only two colors. So if we see a logo doesn't have to be flashy, it doesn't have to be multiple colors, multiple fonts to be effective. Sometimes the simplest ones, even a black and white logo, is the best. Which brings me to my next point. Your logo design should be in black and white only, okay? No colors on this assignment. You'll have the chance to color it in week 2, but right now we are just doing black and white logos. Okay, so this assignment, we're going to be doing demos in Illustrator. For assignment 1, you do have the choice to use InDesign or Illustrator, but I will say this, if you're going to pursue graphic design as a career and you want to be a graphic designer, I would say try to get as comfortable as you can with Illustrator. It's usually the one of the programs out of the group that kind of is the hardest to master just because of the tools, but it is an excellent program when you're designing in vector format. In fact, InDesign does not have all the capabilities that Illustrator does. So I will be working in Illustrator, and I encourage you to do the same. So if you could all launch your Illustrator, and we'll jump into some exercises. I'm going to teach you how to manipulate text in Illustrator to kind of help create effects when you're designing your logo. Some simple things that you could try to kind of create a different look. And I want you to try to study other logos. Look at other logos out there. Understand the positive and negative space using white space and black, figure and ground. Hopefully you'll be doing your readings and keeping up with the videos, and this will explain more of what it is. But also we're going to be working with the Pathfinder and compound paths. This is all kind of foreign if you haven't worked with it before, but it will be pretty simple when I show you the demo. So let me know when you have Illustrator up and we'll jump right into it. Okay, so it looks like everyone's got it up. We'll close out of these slides. It looks like we're done with these ones. So I'm going to teach you some super easy Illustrator typography tricks. Before we do that though, I do want to show you some examples and show you how to set up your assignment 1 document, okay? Now, are most of you familiar with Illustrator and InDesign, like how to set up a new document? You guys are you familiar with that, or would you like me to go over that? Okay. All right. So it's pretty much just like the setting up a Word document. You go to File, New, and then if you have the newest form of Adobe Illustrator, it kind of has a different face or format than it used to in the old versions, but it just means that most of your information here is on the right. So it's important to give it a name, title it something. I think in the rubric it tells you exactly what to call it. And then 8.5 by 11, there needs to be an 8.5 by 11 page for each of your logo designs. So I don't know, times that by however many, I came out with 8. So you'll need about 8 pages. So 8 artboards is what we're gonna call it. And then we want it to be portrait orientation. And then that is all you need, I think, for setting up this document. So you'll hit create. And you should have all your artboards available. All right, now let me show you some examples of some things that have been done by other students. I'll show you some do's and don'ts. Here's one that did not get a very good grade in my class. And I think that we can see why. Let's talk about it. Did you read landscape? Well, I know it's landscape on the assessment one when we do our work in InDesign. Let me go double check that so I don't miscommunicate it. I don't think it's specified. It says present each solution on 8.5 by 11 page, which can be created in Illustrator or InDesign. Be sure to identify which solution. I mean, I'm not going to dock you if it's landscaped versus portrait. But if you see anything where it does specifically say, let me know. Yeah, no, it's fine. And I can get confused too, so I'm not immune to that. So it's always good to double check with me. I do know on the assessment one, which we'll go over in a little bit after our break, we will set it is required to have it landscaped. That is a requirement. But I don't think there's a requirement for this one. I personally think it would be better if you did a vertical alignment. So that's why I set it to portrait. Okay, so a few things are wrong with this assignment. First of all, they didn't do multiple artboards for their logos, okay? They put it all on one page. While I would prefer that, that's not what the assignment says, and I don't write the assignment. So you will need a logo on each page. What else is going on here that wouldn't necessarily get you a good grade? Let me zoom in so you can see it. What else do you see here? Yeah, the fonts are hard to read. I think the fonts themselves are okay because you're given an approved list and they're all supposed to jive pretty well and be clear and legible. But it's very busy, that's right. And that's what makes it hard to read, Terry. It's just there's too much going on. The logos are supposed to be black and white only. That means that the student should not have used grayscale at all. This gray should have been removed. There shouldn't be any gray, no gradients. That should not be included. So it should just be a black and white logo. Inconsistent with the outlines of text. I mean, some fonts were outlined, some letters were not. Let's see, even the outlining was inconsistent. Letters didn't make sense. If you were to take away the busy background or the star, I mean, they used a star for Italian restaurant. I don't know if that makes total sense. That'd be more of something in the South. But none of it depicted what it was. So if I were to look at one of these logos and someone were to say, that's an Italian bistro, I would have no idea if that wasn't part of the company name. So the message or I should say the look and feel should communicate to me that this is a restaurant, or this is a bank, or this is a toy company. And you can do that without adding all this. To me, it just looks like a circus, like too much going on. We need to simplify it. Yeah, it just kind of, it doesn't really communicate what it is. The BOL on the right, the Bank of Lancaster, it looks like a jail. It doesn't look like a bank. I don't know if I'd want to put my money in a bank that looks like a jail. It just didn't quite capture what it was supposed to. And first of all, it's far too busy. We don't need all these effects. I'll show you some cool tricks that you can apply to your fonts to give it something that a little edge, but doesn't create this busy, hard to read look. So this is a very good example of what not to do. So as you're doing your designs, make sure that you don't do busy backgrounds like that. Gradients are not allowed and grayscale is not allowed. It's black and white only. All right. Let me see. This is one that had some pretty good, there were some do's and don'ts on this one as well, but I will circle the ones that I did think were appropriate, okay? For one, they didn't put their logos on each individual page, so that made it hard to give them full points for it. But let me find where I can circle. Let's see. Okay, so I thought this was effective. I thought this logo here was really good. Here's why. Let me circle it. They didn't need to put Toy Store, so I probably would have just X'd that out. But they, using the JS in a very playful, almost looked like a box or a Jack in the Box look, was really cool. And the letters, how they angled them, looked like it was angled like it was on a box. So I thought this was done well. But as we know, the letter mark does not need the rest of the logo name in it. It just needs the initials, okay? Let's see, another one that I thought was styled very well was this Italian Bistro. Now, they didn't need the name of the company, but I thought that they did some really cool things. I liked their effects, their little graphics, just little embellishments, I should say, not graphics, but embellishments. And then the font could have been a little bit different. But again, they were using the entire name of the company, and that's not good. So we don't want the entire name of the company. You want to just make sure you use the initials, and you want it to make sense. So this one kind of had some good things going for it, some not so good things. But I just, hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what other students have done, and then kind of show you the good and the bad to help you out. Okay, so let's talk about what is appropriate. What can we do? And I'll do a few for you. I won't do them all, but you definitely, I want you to use your creative minds for this and try to come up with your own concepts. Normally I'll say you can copy my design if it's a layout or something, just to get the feel for how to lay something out. But for logo design, it's important that you come up with your own look, because in the real world, if someone were to hire you to create a logo, you couldn't copy any company's logo. You'd get sued. So we're not gonna, I won't encourage you to do that, but what I will ask you to do is try to come up with something creative or maybe a spin off of what I do, okay? All right, so the first one, sorry, let me find my place. There we go. Okay, so the first one I'm gonna design for you is this Jumping Spiders logo. Now if you go back and watch that video that we just saw where she goes into how to do a different version of it, she used color, however, we have to use black and white. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to draw a text box, okay? And you want to put in your text box the font that you use. And was it bold or italic, or was it bold italic? Okay, so you'll put your font, the name of the font, and then the font style. And then you'll want to put the company name. Jumping Spider Toys, okay? And for this one, sorry, one second. I'm typing it in the font box. Let's see if I have it. I will use Futura. There we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is grab the initials of my company, and I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see it. Now, I don't like the lowercase j because it looks like an I, so I'm going to go ahead and capitalize that. Maybe I might be able to use a different, let's try Helvetica. It gives me a better, there we go. Okay, so I've got my lettering, and now I'm going to go ahead and give it a bold. I like to bold it, so, or maybe not a heavy, but I will do a bold condensed. Okay, and then what I like to do is after you've typed in your abbreviations or your company name, you're going to go to type, the drop-down menu, type, and go to create outlines. So I want you to practice this. I want you to go into your Illustrator, set up your document. I want you to type out JST or pick a company name, the initials, and I want you to type out the initials and then go to type, create outlines. And let me know when you've done that. I want you to get used to creating outlines. So just to recap, I drew a text box. I typed in my letters, JST, go to type, create outlines. And you'll know that it created outlines when you grab your direct selection tool and you see that each letter is individually covered with these little anchor points. That means that now it's its own vector. Each one I can manipulate. Okay? So I'll give you guys 2 or 3 minutes to do that, and let me know when you created outlines on your text. Does anyone need help? Do you want me to step you through it? Does anyone have it to share? Would anyone like to share their screen and show us how you created outlines? Okay, and if not, what we'll do is we'll continue on with the logo design. So I will grab my direct selection tool, and this will allow me to manipulate each other. Yes.
When you went to type, it was type, and then what did you select for options to?
Yeah, so once you have your text box, so I'll draw it real quick, type in your letters, you go to type, make sure your box is selected, but you'll go to type on the drop-down menu, and then select create outlines. It's kind of towards the bottom.
Oh, okay.
You see that there?
Yeah.
You'll click that, and then you'll just see your text box kind of shrink, but the way that you'll know that it did its job is when you go to your direct selection tool, which is the white arrow, you'll see that each letter now has its own individual anchor points, these little blue squares. And
Okay.
those are, you can even manipulate. So that's another way you can kind of stylize your own text, but you'll know that you did it right when you see each letter is covered in its own anchor points.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Great question.
I used a lowercase j that didn't take the dot with it.
Say that, oh, it didn't take the dot with it?
No.
Here, show me your screen if you don't mind. I'll stop share. And if you click the share screen, it's kind of that double window icon. Do you see that on Zoom?
Share screen.
Yeah, it's got like the map. Oh, perfect. Okay, so, okay, click Command Z for me. Yeah, Command Z. That should undo and kind of back up so I can see. Okay, okay, I see. So you had already, so click on the J for me with your direct selection tool, the white arrow. Perfect. Select the J, and you will have to hold Shift and select the dot on top of the J. Let's see if it makes you select both. There you go. So hold down Shift. Okay, so holding down Shift will help you select multiple objects at the same time. Now you'll be able to resize. Now to resize something, you'll use your selection tool, which is the black arrow. There you go.
Whoa, there you go.
There you go. Awesome. A great question. And that's kind of weird that it didn't, usually it groups them. But to resize something, make sure you hold down Shift as you grab the corner anchor point so that constrains your proportions. So if you hit Command Z again, hold down, I think it's Shift or Option. It's one of those. There you go. So if you hold down that button, it will help constrain your proportions so you can resize something without stretching it.
Okay.
Perfect. Great job. Great
Right,
question. Those are really good questions, guys. Anyone else run into any snags along the way? Okay, so it looks like you guys got a handle on the create outline. So once you've done that, that will allow you to manipulate the letters. Now what I did was I grabbed my direct selection tool and practice along with me as I do this. I selected my S, or you can pick a letter, any letter, and I'm going to rotate it. What I want to do with that is once I've selected my S with my white arrow or my direct selection tool, I'm going to go back to my selection tool, and now it's got the S selected. If I hover over, and I'll zoom in so you can see this, if I hover over the corner anchor points, my cursor changes. See that curved arrow? That means that it's ready to rotate. So I can slightly rotate my S to kind of give it an angle. The idea here with my logo design is I want to make the letters jump off the page. I'm going to do a play on the word jump. So I'm going to kind of shift this S so that it looks like it's being angled and it's jumping, because when you jump on a trampoline, you're kind of all over the place, and that's kind of what I want it to look like. So I'm going to angle each of my letters. So practice using the rotate tool. It's also here on your toolbar. Your toolbar. If you hit R, it'll let you rotate something. I just find this is the easiest way to do it. So if I grab my direct selection tool, I'm going to do the same thing to my J. Just make sure that that dot is included. And then I'll grab my selection tool, and I'm going to kind of angle my J by hovering my mouse over one of the anchor points. And I'm going to kind of like turn my J a little bit. So I can give it a different angle. And I'm going to do the same with my T. I'm going to give it a different angle as all the rest, because I want it to also look like it's jumping off the page. So I'm going to kind of tilt it a little bit. And I could even go so far as to move it down a little bit, not too much. And I don't want it to be too disconnected from the other letters. So that looks about right. So I'll zoom out so you can kind of see it. So I want you to practice using the rotate tool by hovering over the corner of your box on those corner anchor points. So with your direct selection or your selection tool, hover over any corner, and that will allow you to give an angle to it. Now there's many ways that you can angle an item. This is one of them. I showed you again on the rotate tool on the toolbar. And then also up here, let's see if I can find it. There's also a way to rotate the letters manually. But this is probably the easiest, fastest way, I think. So does everyone feel comfortable with rotating their letters? Getting an angle on those letters? Would anyone like to share? Perfect. Thank you, Vian. Let me close my window and you are welcome to share. If you click on that dual window icon, share screen, perfect. Awesome. So it looks like you angled that S just right. Can you show us how you did that? So she selected her S, hovered over the anchor point, and that allowed her to be able to rotate the letters. That's perfect. Excellent job. That's exactly how you do it. Thank you, Vian. Thanks for sharing that. So hopefully you feel comfortable with that. So that's just another way to kind of adjust your letters. Let's see, what else can we do to this logo to give it something? You could create a little drop shadow effect. And I'm going to grab this little ellipse tool. Now this is just going to be a slight embellishment, not so much a graphic. And I'm going to draw this little oval, and I'm going to create, actually before I do that, I'm going to go to Effect, and you will have so much fun playing with all these different effects. We're going to play with some in just a minute, but I will do one. Let's see, where is it? Stylize. Let's do feather. And it will bring up a little box. Allows you to kind of preview what's going on. See if it will let me. I don't think feather is going to do it because it's so small. Let me try. Might need to do. You know what? I'll just adjust the opacity on this. I don't think it's going to give me the look I want. So if I go to opacity here up at the top of my screen with the object selected, this allows me to change the transparency of an object. And I'm just doing a really light opacity. So it almost looks like it's like the shadow of the S, if you can kind of see where I'm going with that. And I just want it really, really light, really subtle, to kind of make it look like it's jumping off. So that's all I would probably do for this logo. You don't need much. I think the JST, jumping spiders, you could, you know, I've seen some students try to create a little spider with the eye of the J. See, let's grab the selection tool. I mean, the simpler, you know that KISS motto, keep it simple, stupid, that's kind of where I want you to think when you're doing logo designs. We could stop here and this would be a winner. Because you manipulated the text enough that it looks, you didn't just type the letters on the page, you did some manipulation to it, you rotated it, you added a little drop shadow to it. You could even go so far as to change let's see if it'll let me to kind of change elements of it. So I could take that little square off of the J, and I can do more of a circle. Could put it up there. And then you could do something that would kind of give the illusion of a spider if you wanted to. I've seen some students do that. And again, you would use your rotate tool just by hovering over the little anchor point. But again, this is just some ideas. You don't have to, I would pick one idea and go with it. I wouldn't try to incorporate all of the ideas because then it could get a little bit weird. But anyways, you can kind of create a spider if that's what you want. You can just use the round circle instead of the square. There's also, I'll show you some other text techniques that you can do to give some interest to this. Maybe go to Effect and go to Stylize, round the corners. You could play with this a little bit. You kind of round the corners up a little bit. Let's see. Gives it a different feel. And that's also an option. Okay, so that's jumping spiders. That would be a winner. And then down here, I would just come and type what my final logo is. Try to center it on the page. If you highlight everything and hit Command G, that will group it all so you don't have to keep selecting. Everything's selected together. And if you hold down Shift as you click and drag, that will expand your logo, make it nice and big without by constraining the proportions. And then down here, I'm just going to center this on the page. Make sure your smart guides are turned on. That's another big thing. If you go to View and click on Smart Guides right here, that will make sure, and what that does is when you move an element, see those purple lines popping up? That's just kind of showing you where it's centering things, and it's really helpful to have. So this would be my first logo design, jumping spiders. Okay, let's do one of the harder ones. I think the restaurant is kind of a hard one to do because it's really hard to portray a restaurant with just using text. And I've seen some students get really creative, and I'm going to show you one of the designs that was done by one student. Let's see here. I think they used Dido for their font. And they did all caps. But for this one, for the middle letter, they increased it. So the I was slightly bigger than the T. And what I'm going to do is go to Type, Create Outlines, so that I can manipulate each letter. And then I'm going to bring this I down so it lies flush with the T and the B at the top. Maybe not. Maybe maybe flush at the bottom. I'll just keep it there. And then let's add a circle. Your ellipse tool will draw a circle for you. Hold down Shift as you draw or click and drag, and that will constrain your proportions. I'm going to center this circle on top of my eye. And then I'm going to, there's two ways you can do this. So without getting complicated, I'm going to select my polygon tool. I'm going to click once on my artboard, and then it will bring up this little box here that says, how many sides do you want? And I'm going to say 3 because I want to create a triangle. And then with this triangle, I'll keep it black. I'm going to rotate it, shrink it down. I'm going to be creating a little piece of pizza. That's the idea here. I'm going to zoom in. And then I'm going to make sure that my stroke is white. And you can adjust your stroke here at the top or at the bottom of your toolbar here. This is your stroke box, and then your fill box is the solid box. If you get confused, just hover your mouse over it and it will tell you which one is which. So with a little white stroke added, I'm going to kind of put that little piece of pizza right in the center. Shrink it down just a little bit. It doesn't need to be huge. And then I'll zoom out. And that is all that there is to that logo. What I love about this logo so much is that it is, it's simple, but yet it communicates a message. When I see this, I think, oh, this is a food company. And so that's what I loved about it, is the typography was strong. It was the star of the show with very subtle embellishment on it. And I thought this really worked. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. Oops, I want it proportional. I'll highlight everything. Remember, Command G will group your items. I'll make it roughly the same size as the other one. And then again, I'm just going to copy the same information, except this one is going to be the Toscana Italian Bistro. And then down here, you'll give what font you used. I think I used Dido. Dado bold. All right, so there's that one. So this is kind of give you an idea of what to do. Are there any questions about the logo designs? Okay, so pretty straightforward. Just try to create something simple. We don't need a ton of, again, no graphics. Remember that other student that did really busy things? We just need it simple and clean. So just kind of come up with some creative ways to do it, whether it's a play on words or whether it's a symbol that would represent your company, or maybe you created something out of the negative space of your letters. This is really fun. So I love this assignment, and Elena says she's excited to play. So I'm excited for you. Just use Google too and get some ideas. That's always fun. All right, so I'm gonna let you kind of take the reins with the logo designs. Again, you're gonna need 8 pages. Your document should look like this, and 1 on each page, and then you'll submit it. The way that we'll submit it is through a PDF. You'll go to File, let's do Package. Click on Package. It'll say, do you want to save this? Yes, I want to save it. The reason why we're packaging it is because I need you to pull the fonts that you used and go to, just save it somewhere where you'll remember it. Let's see, project. And then you will just hit OK. And it will ask you, okay, what folder name do you want to give it? You can name it what you're supposed to. I think the instructions are on your assignment 1. It is like DES 113. This is Woodland. You'll have to look it up. Hit package, hit OK. Everything should be OK. And then wherever you saved it, it will save a folder. And within that folder is a PDF. So I'm going to go to that folder real quick. See if it did it. You know what? It didn't do that. So let's see. Why didn't it do that? Let's try it again. Maybe the easier way would probably be to go to Save As and go to down here at the bottom under Format, Adobe PDF. There you go. Just do that. And then it'll ask you, do you want to just do smallest file size is fine. Hit Save PDF, hit OK. And it will create 8 different pages for you, okay? And you'll just submit those. So that should be pretty easy. All right, any questions about that? We'll just do it that way. Packaging didn't work. Okay, perfect. So let's do some fun things. Here's some effects that you can use for your logo designs. And it looks like we didn't take our 10-minute break. So do we want to blow through it until let's see, until the 9:30, or do you want to take a break and then come back? Okay, perfect. We'll take our 10-minute break now. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay, so we're back. Hopefully everyone else is. I'm gonna do some little demos for, oh, perfect, you guys are here, perfect. Okay, so let's do some text effects. This can help give us a little edge when we're designing our logos and kind of gives us some options other than just simply using the text that's on the page. All right. Okay, so the first one is called scribble text. So the first technique, it's pretty super easy. It's a little cheesy, but with a little creativity, I think you can create some nice applications. So all you need to do is grab a text box. You can type any word in. All right, and the font that I'm using here is Chanel, but I mean, really, it can be used with any font. I'm using, let's use Helvetica if you wanted to use Helvetica. And with the font typed into the text box, you go to type at your drop-down menu, type, and then go to, or I'm sorry, effect, go to stylize. So effect, stylize, scribble right here at the bottom. See that? Right here. So effect, stylize, and scribble. And then what you'll do is you can kind of fill in, do you see my dialog box? So you can kind of fill in the blanks, but the more that you adjust, obviously get more of a dramatic look. And you can play around with the settings a little bit. I'm just going to do pretty low settings. The higher you go on some of these will give you a much different outcome, but just kind of play around with it and then hit OK. And then the next thing I like to do is give my scribble font a little stroke. And you can adjust the stroke here at the top of your page, or you can go down to the bottom of your toolbar, either one. And I'm going to give it a stroke. I'll give it a black stroke. And you can adjust the stroke weight or how thick it is by just moving over here to the right of the stroke box. And you can adjust your stroke a little bit. And that kind of constrains the scribble effect a little bit. So that's a very simple way to do it. I'd like you to try it. If you will type any word, any font, it doesn't matter right now. We're just practicing the effect. And then once you've typed out your word, go to Effect, Stylize, and then Scribble. And I'll put that in the chat box so that you have that to follow. As you see here. And let me know if you run into any problems or if you'd like to share your screen to show that you got it. Or kind of just a smiley face to show me that you, thumbs up, that you got it. And as you can see, I used 2 different fonts here. It gives you 2 different effects. Okay, perfect. So you played with that one on the JST. Perfect. So you just getting used to your effect box here kind of gives you some really cool things that you can do with it. Okay. All right. Hey, Francis, thanks for coming. You got it. Lena got it. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. This one is pretty simple. Let me move this text box out. Zoom in to where we're working. This one's called Embellishing Scripts. This one's simple, but it's kind of fun too. You'll have a lot of fun if you downloaded extra fonts, but right now I'm just going to stick with this one. So if you take this font, it's called Alex Brush. I don't know if you have that one. And what the idea here is to find a font that is already kind of cursive-y, kind of curvy, but doesn't have a lot of embellishments. So I thought Alex Brush would be a good one. If you don't have it, maybe something similar to it. This one's kind of neat because it's got curly lettering, but it's not very embellished. So what I did was I went to my glyphs, and glyphs are fun too in logo design because you can find some elements to use. If you go to type and make sure your glyphs box is checked, it will open. It looks like this. Let me move it out of the way here. Glyphs are just extra characters within a font family. So depending on how old the font is, if it's a classic font like Times New Roman or Helvetica, if it's been a font that's been around for a while, you're going to have a very large family of extra characters and symbols. But for this one, I believe it is, let me see, which one did I use? I think it's Minion Pro. And you just type in whatever font you want to use down here to find, you know, what font offers certain symbols. Each one's different. You kind of scroll down. I found this one, so I'm going to use this one. Just double click on it. Or if you draw your text box and then double click on it, it will appear in the text box like that. And go to Type Create Outlines to make it adjustable. And you can do several things. So for this one, I can choose to kind of attach it to the Y. I could kind of make it part of the C like that. So I'm kind of adding these little embellishments to change the look of the font. It almost looks like a different font now, doesn't it? So this is one way that you could do it. Another, you can find another more embellished font. Let's see if I can find one. But practice this. Practice finding your glyphs box and practice adding to a font. Maybe try this one. Let's see. Hold on. My thing does not want to show up. There we go. So here's another embellished font. If I create outlines, I can shrink it down quite a bit. But, you know, you can add some stuff to your letters, but this is one way that you can embellish your fonts by using some characters from the glyphs panel. Are there any questions about this? I want you to try accessing your glyphs. So if you grab a type box, click and drag. When you find your glyph that you want to use, double click it, and it will appear in your text box. Then you'll just create outlines like you normally did, and then this will allow you to hold down Shift and you can resize it and then add to your existing font. So that's the idea here. Can we see that, how that was done? Let's do another one. This one's called Rounded Corners. This is one I kind of tried to do on the JST. So if you take a word, take a text box. I'll move this over so you can see it done. I'll shrink this down a little bit so it's not so big. All right, so if you take this and then if you go to, this one is also called, this is just Rounded Corners, pretty simple. Another really easy Illustrator effect that you can apply to text is rounding the corners of them. It softens the look a little bit, makes it look almost kind of custom. So what you would do is similar thing. You go to select your text box, go to Effect, Stylize, Round Corners, still kind of in the same place. And I'll put that in the box so you can see. There you go. And then you'll play around with the radius until you find something that you like and then just hit OK. If you click this preview button, this will allow you to kind of preview what your work is doing. This is a live effect, so you can edit both the text and the radius at the same time without starting over and having to retrace your steps. I like that. So if they have a preview button, use it. When you're done tweaking, you can convert the text to outlines. You can expand the appearance to make the effect permanent, but you'll just kind of play around with, you know, how exaggerated do you want to get. These are preset, but if I wanted to do something that wasn't so exaggerated, I could manually type in a value. You don't have to use what they're giving you. see here. Okay, so this is one way to be able to adjust the roundness of your font. So that kind of gives it a little bit different look. Are there any questions about how that was achieved? All right, and last one is 3D text. If you wanted to give your text, or I'm sorry, I guess there's two different ones. So playing with letter forms. Let's do this one because this one's kind of cool, and you could probably apply this one really easily to your design. So when you realize that you're not stuck with the boring forms that your fonts have by default, I think the possibilities really open up. So utilizing the direct selection tool and the Pathfinder, you can make a ton of awesome enhancements. And so what we're going to do is grab a common font. I'll use Helvetica, and I'll type in typo. Let me go to Helvetica. And I'll do, you know what, I'll do a Futura. They give me, yeah, I'll do Futura. It's a little, it'll work easier with this. Okay, so here's the idea. So I typed out the word typo, and what I want to do is create outlines. So go to Type, Create Outlines. So this is a plain old boring font, and you're going to jazz it up a little bit, kind of like I did up here. How did I get that effect? Well, the first thing you want to do is when you convert it to outlines, just like we did in the few techniques above, I want you to turn the text into shapes. And so we're given much more freedom over how we can customize these letters. I'm going to select this Y, and I'm going to kind of move it over with my arrow tool, just kind of overlapping this T a little bit. And then I'm going to right click on it and make sure that it's bring to the front. You click on Arrange, Bring to Front. Do you see that? So by right clicking on an object, you can bring it to the front. And that's an important step, because when we do this, I'm going to now need my Pathfinder tool. And you can find that in your window drop-down menu. And everything's alphabetical order, so it makes it really nice to be able to find. So here's my Pathfinder. And this pops up. And by selecting both letters with my direct selection tool, the Y and the T, hold down Shift when you select multiple objects. And then down here under Pathfinders, click the second one. It's Trim. And then you'll grab your direct selection tool and kind of move the Y away from the T, and you have that really cool look, like the T is cutting into the Y. Do you see that? That cool effect. All right, so I went a little fast, but I'm going to give you time to find the Pathfinder tool. So I want you guys to type in two letters. I want you to overlap them, and then I want you to use the trim setting under your Pathfinders and kind of see if you can get that effect. Let me know if you have any questions. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to do another exercise. I'll use the trim tool again. In this case, like my example, I'm going to move the P right next to the Y. I'll do it a little differently than I did above. And I will click on the P, I'll right click, bring to front, and then I'll make sure I'll hold down Shift, click on the P and the Y, because those are the two I want to overlap, and I'll hit Trim. So now it looks like the Y is cut off. Now if I were to undo that and make the Y be in front, click on Y, arrange, bring to front, and click on the Y and the P, click on Trim. Now it's the P that gets cut off a little bit. So I want my spacing to be even, but that looks really custom now. Now it looks like the Y is cutting into the letters, and that gives it more of a custom look than just boring old letters. Another thing, well, I'll stop here so that you guys can catch up. Are there any questions about using the Pathfinder trim tool? Okay, we're good? All right, pretty straightforward. And another trick you can do is you can play with the negative space within a letter. If you click on, for instance, this letter O and P, these letters have some white space in between. They kind of have if you select the inner portions of the O and the P, or any other letters that you have with trapped negative space, you can do some really fun things. Just for fun, we're going to delete these. So I'm going to click on the blue anchor points with the direct selection tool. I'm just going to go around and delete them. There you go, until it's just this blank canvas. This already goes a long way towards turning this boring font into something that's much more edgy and kind of cool. So just by doing that, it gives me a really unique look. And I could even overlap the P and the O. It would give me kind of a neat look like that. Really, the options are pretty endless here. I'm just kind of showing you what you can do. So are there any questions about how I got these effects? If you want to learn how to do something.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have my letters right, but I can't get the Pathfinder to trim it.
Sure. Okay, I'll close my screen. If you would just share your screen. Great question. The Pathfinder is tricky, and it does take a few times to practice, but you'll get it. Okay, so what you need to do, overlap it, and then make sure that the letter that you want to cut into, basically the one that you want to preserve its shape, you want to make sure that's brought to the front. So if you want the Z to cut into the M, you'll bring that to the front. So right click it and hit Arrange, Bring to Front. Good. And then select both of them with your direct selection tool. Okay, and then go to your Pathfinder. Are they grouped? You just have them selected, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just hit Shift and select them individually.
Oh, okay. I think that's what I was missing.
Was it grouped? I don't know. That's strange that it wouldn't let you. Try it again.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. You need maybe try selecting it with your direct selection tool. So the white arrow. See if it'll let you. Okay, now do the Pathfinder. Let's see if that will make a difference. Pathfinder effects should be applied to groups, layers, or type objects that may not have any effect on the current selection. Interesting. Hit OK. Let's see. Have you applied any effect to? Maybe we need to start over. Maybe because there was a previous effect on. Oh, or maybe move the Z away from the M. Let's see. Did it do it? It didn't do anything, huh? Let's try again. Can you type it and we'll start from scratch? Sometimes when we mess around with it, it's already got these settings. Try it again. Perfect. And then go to Create Outlines. Let's see if it'll work. Okay, and then your direct selection tool. Okay, and then make sure it's on the front. And select them both.
Now I hold down the Shift and select the Z and the M.
That's right, exactly. Good job. And then it should work. And if it doesn't work, we might need to okay, so it didn't give you a warning. So now select the Z with your direct selection tool and move it away. Or sorry, grab the white arrow and then select just the Z. Might need to just deselect off the page. There you go. And then select the Z and move it away from the M. Whoop. Hit undo. Yeah, Command Z. Okay. And just move it away. Hit A on your keyboard. There you go.
Yeah.
You might have, when you were hitting Command Z, it might have undid the trim. Let's try it one more time. Select them both and then go to Stylize and Trim. Okay, hit Apply New Effect. All right, now use your direct selection tool and try to move, yeah, the white one. Click off the page, just click off the page, and then click the Z, and then just just click and drag it away. Whoop. I wonder what it's doing. Okay, another thing to try, let's do, go to select them both. And then I don't know why you would need to do this, but maybe try going to, let's see, where is it? Object Expand. Go to Object, drop down menu, go to Expand. You see the Object drop down menu? Go to, do you see Expand Appearance or Rasterize? No, you don't want rasterize. You just want expand appearance. Do you see that? Does it let you select it? Expand or expand appearance?
It just lets me expand. Maybe if.
Does it let you expand?
Okay.
Okay, now go back to Object, drop down, and let's see what else it says. Does it let you, okay, hit Expand. Okay, now use your selection tool and go to the Pathfinder and try it again. Let's see if it'll let you do it. Okay, and move the Z away from the M, and let's see if that. There
Okay.
you go, we did it. Okay, sometimes, and I could not tell you why, but sometimes, like in this case, and for all those who are watching, if you have trouble and it's not, if the Pathfinder isn't working, you've done those steps, you need to expand the appearance. What that does is it kind of vectorizes your object. I'm not sure why some does that and some doesn't. I couldn't tell you. I don't know the techniques behind it, but I just know that sometimes you'll have to go to Object Expand, but that's only if it doesn't work the first time. Like if you're getting warning boxes like you were seeing. So that's probably what you'll have to do if you try that again. So do you remember how we did that? We just went to Object Expand.
Yep, I remember.
Okay. Cool, great question. That's I've seen that only once or twice in teaching, and it's so weird because I can't explain why it does that. I don't know. So just know you're supposed to do that. Okay, any other questions? That was a great question. Anything else? Okay, we are just about out of time, so let me, we might go a few minutes over. I understand if you guys have to bug out since it's so late, maybe in your time zone, but I do want to cover do a quick exercise on the assessment one. We'll probably have to get to 3D text later. Just same steps, Effect, Stylize, or I'm sorry, Effect 3D, and then you click on Extrude and Bevel, and if you play around with it, it will give you different effects. Okay, so that's another way to add some style to your text. So hopefully you play around with these exercises and have some fun with that. I'm going to jump into the InDesign portion of our assignment. You pull this up. And I won't spend a ton of time on it because it's pretty self-explanatory. They tell you what to do. You're just supposed to follow the instructions. So I won't go too heavily into it, but I will do one or two exercises just to help you feel comfortable with how the assignment's supposed to be tackled. If you have any questions on what's going to be graded on, just go to the grading rubric underneath the assessment. So the instructions say to create an 8.5 by 11 page landscape, and then it gives you some margin settings to plug in. So the way that you'll do that is just go to File, New Document, and then number of pages, you'll need 5. Deselect facing pages. We don't want that box checked. We want individual pages. And then letter is fine. That's 8.5 by 11, or you can manually enter it in. And then it gives you some settings. You see, the top is 1.5 inches. The bottom is 2.5 inches. And the right is 1 inch. And if your automatic increments and measurements are in picas, you will have to type the inch increment after each value that you put in, and the left is 1 inch. So 1 inch, just like I'm doing. Kind of hit tab and then hit OK. Oh, I made a mistake. Hold on. We'll back up. You want to turn off this link icon. It's make all settings the same. We don't want that. That will mess you up like it messed me up. Okay, so we'll try it again. Top is 1.5 inches. The bottom was 2.5 inches. The inside, or right and left, are 1 inch and 1 inch, I believe. Let me just double check that. Right bottom. Okay. I'll preview it. You can also click the preview box so you can see, and I want it to be landscaped, okay? I want 5 pages, deselect facing pages.
I'm not seeing anything on the screen.
You're not? Thank you for telling me. Let's see. Let's go to, apologize. Okay, let's go here.
I just went to like 5 different screens trying to see if maybe I had
I'm sorry. I
wrong.
have like 7 open right now, so it's like kind of hard. Thank you for telling me. Okay, I'll back up so that you can see that. So we'll go to File, New Document. And then on the assessment, it gives you these values on the assessment one, so you can just copy what they give you. Deselect facing pages. We do not want that box checked. We want number of pages to be 5, because you'll need to turn in 5. You can keep the page size letter. You want to manually put the values in, you can here. Now their margins will be, for the top, you want to undo this make all settings the same icon. Just make sure the chain link is broken. For the top, you want 1.5 inches. The bottom is 2.5 inches. The left is 1 inch and the right is 1 inch. And then you'll want to make sure this is set to landscape, okay? So that's all you'll need to know for this, and it's all written down for you. So if I know I'm going fast, so I do apologize, but this is written down so you can go see it. Okay, so then first thing you need to do is just follow the steps. It says page 1. You're going to type in the word truth. It says the text is truth. Okay, and I don't think it specifies what font to use, or maybe it does. Actually, it does tell you exactly what font to use. So you want Times New Roman regular. So you just follow the directions. Times New Roman, then you want a regular font. It tells you how big to make it. It's pretty big, actually. Okay, so the font is 225, and you'll want to open up your character box, and the way you access that is by going to your window drop-down menu. Click on Type in Tables, and then make sure that your character box is open, and this box will pop up. So you hit 225 here, and then the leading is found on the right of it. So if you hover over each little icon, it will tell you what it's called. So this is the font size. The one directly to the right is the leading. That is also 225. Now, nothing will change on the leading. If you'll say, oh, nothing changed, as long as the value is there, that's all that matters. The leading, you will see a change if we were to type out lines of text, but right now we're just doing one word. So there won't be a change when you type in the value there. And then look at the space between the letters. Does it look even? Use the kerning tool to make any needed adjustments. I don't think any adjustments need to be made on this one. If you wanted to bring the R in a little bit more, you can highlight the R and then adjust the kerning. But I don't think it's necessary. So we'll just leave it at that. So that's page 1. And then you do need to have, I think you need to have I don't think you need to put anything else on this page. And then page 2, again, it's just a matter of following the instruction. The text gives you the text, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. All right, and then it gives me the specs, so I need a 36-point font. So 36, and then 48 leading. Again, you will see a change because there's now multiple lines of text. And then you want this Helvetica New Regular. You can adjust that right here. Helvetica New, I have a million versions of this. So, and then you want regular. And then you want it flush left, which is a line left. Like that. And then make line breaks at logical points. So once you have placed your text box, and I recommend bringing your text box all the way from the purple box around it is the margin line. I recommend extending your text box to be exactly between the margin line. Now, where would you make a logical text break? Usually it's right after a comma. So that's what we want. I don't want to see broken words. I don't want to see widows or orphans. So if you see this hyphenated word, you might need to fix that. And the way that you can do that is by clicking on a setting. Where is it? It's under your paragraph styles. Right here, and it will give you the option to turn off your hyphenations. Let's see, where is it? Probably going to be under paragraphs. Here it is. Hyphenate. You want to just deselect hyphenate. Or you can just expand the text box and that will fix it too. Just like that. So the logical break kind of is a natural break. It's just right after the comma, but it already does it. If you followed the directions, it does it for you by itself. So that would be the only thing you'd need to do on page 2. And again, let's do page 3. They give you the text. So I'll just type in, draw a text box, and I'll go and copy. I'll copy and paste all the text. And again, I'm just going to expand it to the edges of my margin line. That margin line is really helpful, kind of acts as a ruler and a guide. I'll highlight all of the text, and then I'll make it 10 point, just like the instructions say. 18 leading. And then Adobe Garamond is the font. Regular. And then you want to set it to justified, okay? So you can set it here. Any justified formatting is fine. You could do left justified. You could just do probably this one. Justify with the last line aligned left. So you could do that one. And then let's see what other instructions they give you. Be sure to auto hyphenation is off. I showed you how to do that. So highlight all of it. Make sure you go to Window, Paragraph, deselect hyphenate. So that is off. And that way you don't have any widows or orphans. You kind of want to adjust for that. Okay. And then modify the text box so that you have a medium column width of 70 to 90 characters. I'm not going to be too picky, but I'm just going to kind of bring it in. It's just saying kind of make it so that it's not so long. And then let's see, apply a first line indent. Okay, so a first line indent right here. The way that you do that is if you hover over your left indent button here, it'll tell you first line indent. It tells you what it's called, and this is the one that you want to do. So you kind of want to give it a 0.125 inch indentation. So the only indentation will be on the first paragraph. Oh, I apologize. That was only on the second paragraph. I'm going to confuse you. 0.125 inches. So the indentation is only on the bottom, right, like that. It says do not indent the first paragraph. So don't do what I did. All right, and that's page 3. So I'll let you guys tackle the other 2 pages, but hopefully it's pretty straightforward. It basically spells out what you need to do. It's just a matter of plugging in the values on your character panel right here. Are there any questions as we end class today? All right, hopefully this is going to be a fun assignment for you. So enjoy those logo designs. If you have any questions at all, come to the multi-session on Wednesday, same time, 7:30 to 9:30 Mountain Standard Time, and I'd be happy to work with you, answer any questions. Those of you who want to turn in the assignment on Wednesday, you can receive a grade on the spot after I look over it and critique it. And yeah, so if there's any questions in between that time, just shoot me an email and I'd be happy to help. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope you have a great night.